state. I love California. I was born, I was raised here, I love it, but my wife keeps saying, hey, Nashville looks pretty good. You know, California overspending. California is spending like you can't believe, like it's crazy. Look at the growth of the spending. Are you better off? Anybody think they're better off with all this money going to Sacramento? You know, we have the 14th highest property tax, the 4th highest individual income tax, the worst top tax rate. We have the 2nd highest gasoline tax. We're the #1 state for poverty, #1 for homelessness, #1 state in crime increase. Now, let me ask you a question. This is kind of a personal question, okay? How many of you guys get my newsletter, Reality Alert? And how many of you guys get my newsletter, Huey Report? Well, God bless you guys, and thank you so much for the prayers and some of you the donations for my son. I'm just going to take a quick second, and you'll see why I'm taking this. I was on Varney and Company that you saw, talking about a spike in crime in California. And on nationwide TV, I was talking about how in low-income areas, it's becoming less safe. Middle-income areas, it's becoming less safe. In upper-income areas, it's becoming less safe. I talked about how over where I live, in Palos Verdes, there's a whole area that have security cameras now. They're putting up gates because of the home invasions and the robberies in the affluent neighborhood. And little did I know, 4 days later, my 28-year-old son, Corey, would be at Pacific Coast Highway and Western Avenue around the Harbor City, Torrance area. 3 gang members came up to him to rob him. 3 gang members who had a rap sheet. And these 3 members tried to kill him. 5 bullets. 5 bullets. 2 shattered the arteries. He had enough blood for 3 whole people had to be pumped in. He was in surgery between 9 o'clock, 10:30 the next morning. He flatlined once. And it's a miracle of God that he's alive. It's a miracle of God the doctors recognize because he's got complete speech, consciousness. And it's been now maybe 6 or 7 weeks. Time's kind of crazy for me right now, but 6 or 7 weeks. They can't believe how quickly he got out of the hospital and that he's using a walker. And he went to Easter service 3 days out of the hospital. He's going back to help with the junior high kids at the church he goes to. And it's a miracle. But here's the thing. This was a camera at the store that clearly showed the faces, clearly showed the shooting and who these kids were. 2 of the kids were arrested right away. The shooter is probably in Mexico. That's what the gang division says. They know who these kids were because they've been arrested before. The 2 kids that were with him that went through my son's pocket while he was lying on in the pool of blood, they went in to try to get things out of his car. Now, the DA, Jackie Lacey's office in Los Angeles, had them in jail for 10 days and then released them because under Proposition 47 that was passed 2 years ago, juvenile court system is basically broken. They didn't feel, even though they had the faces, they had everything on there, the police said it was a premeditated murder attempt. They're in their high school. My son's a victim a 2nd time because he doesn't know if he's going to run into them. Right. And this is the broken system we have here in California. And the judges and the legislation and the early release of 40,000 prisoners, 15,000 sexual predators in California is creating a spike in crime and an increase in the homelessness. And then, of course, anyway, I want to thank those guys. And I'll just tell you, Corey's a miracle. I don't know, I'll probably be on TV talking about this DA incident, but I want to thank you for your prayers. Please continue to pray for him. Thank you for helping him out. He's going to have a year, at least, of not being able to work. So some people have helped him out, and I really appreciate it. We've been ranked 51 in state in the union for difficulty in doing business. How could it be 51? Because they counted Washington, D.C. We're even worse than Washington, D.C. for doing business. That's like 11 years in a row. Oh. And then we have companies leaving. In my area, my ad agencies in Torrance, we had 5,000 people leave about a year and a half ago for Plano, Texas. You know, Toyota left. All these companies have left. 1.5 million jobs have been lost with companies leaving. 1 million people have left California. And then we've got the school system. I could pick anything about the school system. In this case, we got the school system with the universities. You know, the bloated salaries of these government people, $300,000-400,000, incredible pensions. The city manager right here in this area is probably making $350,000 a year. You know, I'm sure you'd be willing to do it for 75 or 100. You know, he's out on the golf course all the time. This is the corruption we have here in California, and this is just the bloated university staff. Now, this is diversity. Now, this is one university with a staff of 20, 50 people, all earning $100,000, $150,000 a year. And these are all duplications of things that are going on in the university system. That's your taxpayers' money at work. The results: kids leave, middle class exodus, the wealthy flee. 35% of the recent U.S. population growth state is in places like Tennessee and Texas. And Californians are fleeing to Nevada and Arizona. Retirees give up because, you know what? I have 5 kids. 3 of them are outside of California. Why'd one go to Tennessee? He wants to buy a house. He can't do it in California. He wants to cut his costs by 30 to 40%. Entrepreneurs leave, businesses leave, but that's not all. Your quality of life is going down. The cost on everything is going up. Your gas, have you noticed how much more your gas is? Well, it's going to go up again because of the cap and trade and because of the tax hike from Sacramento. We have less individual freedom and choice and this increase in crime. So how do you vote? Well, you vote 2 ways. Some people will vote, they got to believe just like I do, or I'm not going to vote for them or anybody else. And that's a legitimate way to make sure that somebody lines up, that you're not going to vote for very many candidates if you have to agree with them 100%. So the lesser of 2 evils is some people hold to. I would suggest, and I've got an article on our website that talks about this, is you want to strategically limit evil. You may not find the most perfect candidate, but which candidate can stop the most evil? And then which candidate can promote the most good? Does that make sense? All right. Now, one of the things you need to be careful about in this election is on Facebook and email and in the mail, you're going to get these slate mailings. And these slate mailings are the most deceptive things ever. They look like they're official, and they may say, Reagan Republicans for this. Or there's one that has a picture of Howard Jarvis. And if you know Howard Jarvis, he's with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. But they just used this picture. It was from a completely private company. The most deceitful one was what the Democrats had done, and it'd be deceitful if it was Republicans, but the Democrats did a nice, beautiful brochure that went in the mail and was emailed out, and had the Republican elephant on it. It said, official Republican guide. And then you turn inside, and there's a letter from Jim Brody, the California Republican chairman, how to send funds to Sacramento. And then you turn to the next page, and all the candidates are listed. And guess what? Every candidate, every proposition was listed the way the Democrats wanted the person to vote. And if a Republican got that and they looked at it, oh, this is the official Republican recommendations, I'm going to vote this way. That's why we got to be very, very careful. We do a lot of extensive research. I find out who the candidate has actually contributed to, who the candidate has actually endorsed. and who's endorsed them and who's contributed to them. I try to get them to fill out a questionnaire. I get many of them on the phone, especially the judges, because the judges don't want you to know where they stand on an issue. We take a look at the research in deep. So we got really good researchers that come up, and I usually have about 4 to 5 pages of data on each candidate. And from that, we make a rating. I'm going to show you our preliminary rating, and then I'm going to confirm it to you in an email so that you know exactly where it is. But I'm going to equip you with getting an idea of who these people are. Now, this might be my most controversial issue with the governor's race. And the reason it might be the most controversial issue is some people are passionately for Travis, and some people are passionately for John. So let me just tell you a little bit about these candidates. First of all, there's 27 candidates running for governor. And I could have had you go through all 27 tonight, and you probably would have just walked out. So I picked out the ones, look, here's the reality of politics. You got some people who run, and they have no clue what they're doing, and they're going to lose because they have no organization, no money, no understanding of what it does to get people to the poll and to create a database and the whole thing. If you don't have the money, you're not going to win. Now, I'm going to show you at the very end, you don't have to have the most money to win. But you got to have some money to win. And I'm going to show you, and then there's some candidates who just like to have their name out there, and they keep running and running and running, and they have no chance of winning. So we're going to look at the 6 main candidates. Now, there's people, now some of you, if you want to vote the lesser of 2 evils is evil, and you would consider yourself a conservative Christian type voter, Robert Newman and some of these other candidates are really, really good. There's maybe 6 or 7 candidates like that, really good. But they don't have a chance of winning. So these are the ones we're going to talk about. First, Travis Allen has 447,000. John Cox has 3.5 million. John Chang has 8.1. Gavin has 14.2. Delane has 658,000, and Antonio has 7,137,000. Now again, if I look at that, I'm going to say the top ones are going to be John Cox, maybe, certainly John Chang, maybe, Gavin for sure, and probably Antonio, right? Yes. But having the most money doesn't mean you're going to win. You've got to have the money go to organization and for some campaign stuff. The most money doesn't necessarily do it. What's the number one reason to vote? It's the judges. The governor appoints the people to the California Supreme Court. We have the most radical, progressive California Supreme Court of any state in the nation. And I'm glad to see Brad here. He got it right. I'll introduce Brad in a second. But basically, with this, you've got a situation where these guys are destroying things. You get good legislation passed, they'll destroy it. They're trying to block Trump's good legislation. They're trying to block any type of good legislation and impose their own political views through the judicial process. So what about the governor's race? Social issues. You see that the Democrats line up in the liberal, the conservatives line up, or Republicans line up more conservative. Same thing with big government, small government. The cap and trade tax increase. Almost nobody knows what cap and trade is, but basically it's a way for the government to spend more money without taxes, but by taking money out of businesses and manufacturers, giving it to the bullet train and stuff. And all the candidates are for it except for Travis Allen and Cox. Covered California, that is basically the Obamacare in California. All of them are for it except Travis Allen and John Cox. Choice, being able to have a parent send their kids to the school of their choice. They're all against it except for Travis Allen and John Cox. Same thing with more gun control. On increasing gas taxes, all of them. That's why the Democrats are vulnerable on this, because in November, there will probably be a ballot issue on the gas tax. And you can see the Democrats are for it, Travis Allen, John Cox are against it. Same thing with increased regulations, changing Proposition 13, lowering taxes. Sanctuary state. Now there's two definitions of sanctuary state. One's just general protection of people who are here illegally. The second one is the idea of protecting criminals. And what's going on in the state of California in these cities is they're protecting criminals, people who are convicted, people who are dangerous to society, and they're not turning them over to ICE, and that's where we're finding the sanctuary state law. If that upsets you, I have a petition I'm going to pass out in a few minutes about that. On the sanctuary state city, Democrats are all for it. Travis Allen and John Cox are adamantly against it. Building a wall, same thing. DACA, same. I'm still waiting. I have one more call with Travis before I make a recommendation between him and John Cox. And there's still some issues that have to be answered on those. But the single payer is where you will have total socialized medicine in California. Nothing private going on with the hospitals, doctors. With single payer, only Antonio, and he says it's a good idea, but I can't figure how we could afford it. And the others are basically saying, it doesn't matter, we're just going to have it. And what about religious liberty issues? Today, California is, I would say, the #1 state attacking people of faith. And so we have these different issues. You can look at them, but since and there's two things I want to say about this. But since we have probably one of the nation's most articulate and successful defenders of religious liberty here tonight, I'd like to have him just take a minute to say hi and tell us the two issues in California that just break my heart. Brad Dacus of Pacific Justice Institute. Brad, what is going on?
Yeah, just real quickly, we noticed there's two bills right now that are pending that are horrific. One is going to extend the ban on counseling. Right now we have a law banning counseling for those who are struggling with same-sex attraction or gender identity. And it says, no, kids under 14 cannot get counseling in accordance with their faith to deal with it. This bill would now expand that to apply to everyone, and not just counseling. It would prohibit any goods or services that in any way oppose the connotation that that the LGBT and the radical agenda, and that once you're gay, always gay, in every way. There's no, gender identity is constant. You can't change it, even though this disagrees with the American Psychiatric Association. It's very radical. But it also would ban books, church retreats, also conferences that address these issues. Those would be banned in the state of California. It's even advertising that in any way deals with these issues from a biblical worldview. This is dangerous. We at Pacific Justice have testified against it, and we're getting ready to challenge this in court. Yes. And it's unconstitutional, and I hope we don't have to, but we're getting ready to. The other one real quickly, I call it the anti-homeschooling bill. It's going to form a committee that will look into regulations to limit homeschooling based on health and safety. That is for the government to come in and inspect the homes without a warrant, okay, in violation of the Fourth Amendment, potentially. And then it would also require parents potentially to be licensed credentialed teachers. We already won this case in the appellate court under existing law. This would trump that by making this a new law and a new regulation. That's the second thing. So it's very, very dangerous. And it would also have curriculum requirements, which is the reason so many are homeschooling to begin with. The law already requires them to have English, science, math, etc. Oh no, this would go into specific requirements of things that they want the children to be indoctrinated into. This would require us first to wait, if this is passed, to wait and then challenge it once the regs come out, because it would not be right for us to be able to challenge it on its face. It's a committee to form regulations. We have to wait for those and see what actually then is adopted. These are outrageous, and that's why it's real important to follow what you're learning here today. We need to take back the legislature because it makes my job a lot easier. And our attorneys, we have 5 offices in California to serve you. Let us know if we can ever help you. We're leading the charge on the courts here on the West Coast by God's grace, and we'd love to keep you guys updated. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do